We're currently looking at an aerial view of Hawaii. Or are you? Hi, I'm Nick Shell. We're going to talk about hair loss and psychology, because what else would we possibly talk about? Day after day, subscriber after subscriber. I want to talk about what your self-worth is found in. What gives you self-worth? It's a very important question. What gives you self-worth? Which is kind of hard to say. Here's what I'm proposing to you. I think a lot of people watching my channels, if they had a pie chart of what gives them value as a human being, as a person in general, not just as a son or a friend or a brother or any of those things, as a human being, what gives a person value? As far as saying, you know what, I'm worth something, I matter to this world, I'm happy to be alive, okay? Almost to the extent of what is the meaning of life, but more so, how do I matter to the world? And what enables me to get up out of bed and think, you know what, life's not so bad because I can add value to this world. What I want to propose to you is, I think a lot of people watching this channel put way too much value, self-worth, on their hair. They think that if they have hair or if they don't have hair has a lot to do with their ability to contribute to the world, and even their ability to contribute to their own life and make it better. That's what I want to propose to you. It's funny because you don't think about this until you lose it. When you're younger, you don't think, wow, I put a lot of stock in my self-worth based on how much hair I have. You don't think about that ever. It's not something that ever comes up when you're a teenager. And then as you get older into adulthood and you start seeing the first signs of hair loss, you realize, wow, I'm going to be ugly if I don't have hair. I'm going to be irrelevant if I don't have hair. I'm going to be lonely. I'm going to be less valuable as a human being if I don't have hair. Those are basically things that subconsciously start sneaking in your mind when you realize that suddenly this thing that you never really thought much about, that you didn't realize it was crucial to who you are as a person, now you're realizing, wow. It's funny because it's like this crossroads where suddenly you look back when you did have hair and think, wow, this thing was great having hair, and now you're looking at the future thinking, and this is awful that I'm losing it. I mean, it's almost like we built our hair up to be this godlike thing that now that we're losing it, it's suddenly we demonize it. And therefore we demonize our own value because we put value in that. And so it puts you in a position where you have to think, will I continue to give hair that much value in my life, or will I put it in other things? And so obviously that's the position you're forced to be put in. Because I've talked about how you have to either make a decision to do something about your hair loss or accept it. And obviously I've chosen the path to just accept my hair loss. But I think on top of that, I should point out the fact that it's a matter of knowing consciously, not subconsciously, but consciously, well, where is my hair? Where is my value? Where's my self-worth as a person going to come from if my hair, it has nothing to do with that? In essence, if I take away hair out of the equation, then what am I left with? I think you really have to ask yourself that question. I think we all do. Imagine a pie graph. Imagine how much your hair, how much value that adds. Is it 20%? Is it 10%? Is it 50? Is it 100? Is it 75? I don't know. That's for you to decide. But then take away your hair, meaning that how much did you just take away from your pie? 75%? All of it? A little bit? We're forced to get to the point where we realize, you know what? If I'm not going to do anything about my hair loss, then really I can't allow it to account for any of my self-worth. I think that's ultimate psychology here. You cannot allow your hair loss or your hair to have any effect on your self-worth as a person if you're not going to do something about it to change your hair loss. Like a hair transplant, like medication, like tattoo pigment, like shaving it all off, whatever it is. Until you're willing to do something about it, you continue to have this pie with this big piece missing. So how can you feel good about yourself if that big piece of the pie is missing? Until you realize, okay, now that that piece of the pie is missing, I've got to fill that with something else. I've got to find some other way to fulfill my self-worth since I don't have the hair anymore, that I put all the stock in. Since that's gone now, which I never realized I did put stock in it, but I did. What am I going to do now? Which I hopefully you'll see is something I'm constantly doing as I do these videos. I'm talking about all the other things I put stock in instead of my hair, which is cool because hair is a temporary thing for most of us. But these other things I put stock in are things that actually matter. And you're going to get bored if I talk about them, unless they admit it. Being funny, getting a good education, finding respect, finding skills, being a good leader, being a good communicator, you know. Simply adding value to other people's life, because people don't care about you, they care about what you're willing to do for them and what you're able to do for them. But see, that's all boring, right? Because it's not about hair loss. I'm not focusing right now on something I can't control, right? Because it's easier to focus on what you can't control. It's easier to go paranoid and anxious and depressed about things you can't control. But it's no fun to focus on what you can control, is it? That's not fun, because that requires a plan and rationale thinking and a plan, like I said. None of that's fun. I think I've just pointed out something very fundamental. I think a lot of us have pies, and there's a big piece missing where hair used to be, because we put self-worth where hair is, and we've yet to replace that, either by stopping our hair loss, doing something about it, or simply just replacing it. People like me who you know, we have chosen to simply move on and embrace our hair loss. We've already replaced that piece of the pie long ago. And that's where I'm at. But I think a lot of you haven't caught up to me yet, and you're still kind of sorting that out. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. But I think it would be foolish not to acknowledge that, so that therefore you can be freed and move on.